Hi everyone, welcome to another conversation of Axel and Max. And today we're going to be discussing the book Slow Productivity by Carl Newport. So Axel, you were the one who recommended the book. So
Yeah.
what we're going to do is start by having a bit of a talk about productivity and some of the challenges we faced as a knowledge worker and sort of share our experiences and how that relates back to what we've learned from the book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what I personally really had the main challenge for me was always that there's like an expectation that everyone has to work 8 hours as a knowledge worker, but that's just not realistic in my opinion, or at least that's how it felt for me. In the industrial age, this was a far more easy way to go around it, and a far more effective way of structuring your workday. Just work 8 hours straight. But as a knowledge worker, I feel like I need a lot more time after, let's say, I've worked for 2 hours or 1.5 hours to just take a break. So usually what I do now is take a half-hour break after working for 2 hours or something.
Mm.
Yeah, and in the work environment, that doesn't really seem to be accepted. Um, and also just all the emailing going around, and each extra project that you start creates extra overhead of emailing and arranging stuff like small tasks,
Mm.
by which in the end it kind of feels like you're just doing small things all the time, and you can't really focus on the deeper work, let's say. So that's how it kind of felt for me.
Yeah, I was speaking to a guy earlier, and because I guess in most cases you're going to be paid by the hour if you're working in a company, and it was he was doing cold calling, which is obviously a difficult task, difficult thing to do. We've talked about that, and
Hmm.
he'd do like 200 cold calls or whatever, and then
Mm,
he'd have a profit target for that he's meant to go for, and then it would just refresh every time he hit it. So it's like
mm,
it feels a bit like that where it's you're going there to fill the time, but there's
hmm,
not necessarily an end goal. It's just doing as much as you can. And then
hmm.
also a problem with it is if you are that person who is really productive. I, for example, like I used to work in a marketing agency, and if you're productive, there are always more tasks to do. You'll just get time
Yeah.
to you. So it's it's like a lose. You're either that person who gets everything done, but you just get more work, or you don't get stuff done, but then that obviously has a detrimental impact on the company, and you're probably not going to feel great about yourself either. So there's really it's difficult to win, I think, in that situation, at least for me.
Hmm. Yeah, there's like when you've had a really productive hour, there should be kind of a reward, right? That you
Mm.
after that can take a little break. But in the current way the system is set up, there's not really an incentive to really work extra productively, I would say. So that's why I think it's good to probably maybe work from home, for example, a few days, where you can have a lot more freedom. And I guess that also relates to our discussion from last month about setting up an effective lifestyle. So you have kind of the freedom to work in the way you want instead of having to be at an office.
Mm.
And one thing that the author is the term that he uses is pseudo productivity, um, where we are like our managers and bosses are using the like how hard we're touching our keyboards all the time and clicking our mouses and appearing busy
Yeah.
as kind of a proxy variable, as like a variable to see to see how productive we are. So, well, it's really hard in the knowledge worker age to see how productive we are. So managers just think, okay, if people are sitting in the office behind their computers, touching their keyboards, then it's probably okay.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's of course a nonsense. So yeah, but it is kind of the way it's set up right now. And that's why I think it's kind of quite important to escape the office and have like flexible working uh, setup.
yeah,
So the average knowledge worker checks their email every 6 minutes. So that's
yeah,
kind
that's
of
crazy. And it's as well,
yeah,
it's weird in companies now that you have the expectation to have like your notifications on. And
yeah,
I was just like
yeah.
this, I said it to my old manager, and I said, this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna have to turn these off because they ping through and there's that
Mm-hmm.
stick of how long it takes you to refocus on a task. And it's like
Yeah, yeah.
I can't remember the figure. I don't know if you can, but it's like 20 minutes or something ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So every
Yeah,
time
yeah,
email pings
yeah,
that you'll
yeah.
never really you'll never I guess yeah one of the biggest things is you're never really into doing the work, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to be like very disciplined to keep stuff at bay in terms of emails coming through. You've got Teams and like Slack messages as well that pop up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just human nature that you just want to see what's going on there. So you click
Yeah,
the messengers, and then
yeah.
it's like as well, not only are you then taken off in another direction where you're thinking about another task that you're maybe trying to do quickly in that moment and taken away from what you needed to do that day, you'll also have the stress of thinking about that. And I would always get that where I'm doing something that is important, but then there's something
Mm-hmm.
equally important from another team member, and I'm like, oh, I'll try and do that quickly, and then
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't get done that effectively.
Yeah. And I think that's a nice bridge to the first thing that the or main aspect that the author gives for
Mm.
a better way of productivity that's related to slow productivity. So we've now discussed what the challenges are, and this book hopefully offers some guidance with these challenges. So the first thing is doing less things. I'll just call all of them. The second thing is working in a natural pace.
Mm.
And the third aspect is to obsess over quality. So you were saying that you're kind of focused on something important. You're kind of in the flow, maybe, and then team messages pop up, and you're distracted again. That was also my experience, and I try to yeah, really block out the team's aspect as much as possible. But yeah, that's also you have like the cultural aspect where you kind of have to fit in sometimes a bit. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, so it's kind
yeah.
of yeah. That's why it's I think good to have to do less projects in total, because with each project there comes some administrative overhead, as the author says in the first chapter. So let's say you have a project, it's going to be like 70% um, like working on your computer or whatever, drawing up documents, writing, or doing analysis or whatever. Just for example, there's going to be 30% small emails, small things that have to be done. And at a certain point where you have quite a few projects, then you're only going to be busy with administrative overhead, and the only time you will have for really working is you're gonna have to do it in the evening or before working, for example. And that's one reason why it's the author says it's important to only have a few projects and not too many, so you can really focus on the things that are important. And that's why he also says that it's um, smart to have less projects basically.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think when there's just too much, there's so much to look at and focus on. I
hmm
had that in my last job. So worked in a marketing agency, and the way their business model worked, they needed to have this many clients per employee for it to work. And that's not only is that a very stressful way to work, it's also because there's so many projects, it makes it just makes everything you do more challenging because you have to have like the mental recall, as you say, there's like admin time and
Hmm.
there's sort of tasks you need to do to like plan your week, but everything takes longer where there's more complexity in the system. Whereas what I do now is just working with a smaller number of clients and it allows me to focus more on them. And that's a lot better in terms of just doing less things. But I don't know about how you, I don't know about you as a man, but I find that it's really easy just to like fill up the days and do stuff that maybe I feel like I should be doing, but it just wasting time. Whereas I sometimes think, oh, my quality of life might be better if I focus on a few small things. But say this weekend,
Hmm.
I just there's multiple things that I got involved with, which maybe isn't like the most central focus of my life. But maybe that's being too
Mm.
harsh as well.
Mm. Yeah, I think for me it's also just nice for having a peace of mind to have less stuff going on. And I think it's yeah, what I had at a certain point was just that I was dealing with too many projects that I could reasonably work on, and that just gives like a constant well, it gave me like kind of like a constant state of like a small amount of stress that was not necessary, which is kind of caused by that there is expected that you do more than you actually can. And yeah, well, we don't perform better if we are stressed out. So I guess that doesn't really uh, that's not really good. Yeah, and I think also there's like the thing with the team messages all the time or Slack, and I think it's kind of maybe good to communicate with your coworkers that yeah, you have this view that is distracting everyone, and maybe we can schedule like a time in our agendas for these smaller interactions so that we still have like the opportunity to, because you always need to communicate some small things, right? But just kind of block time in your agenda to do this stuff instead of
Yeah, that'd
it
be
going
quite
around all the time.
yeah, it'd be quite funny to have that where you have like a half hour where everyone's like Teams messages and like an email
Yeah,
like pinging.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it would be possible. Like if everyone like, gets on the same wavelength and sees this, then I think it will definitely be possible. And another way the author mentions of being more focused and doing less things is only to focus on one project per day. So
mm.
that's that's another way.
Is
Yeah,
that,
and then
do you think that's feasible in certain jobs?
mm, yeah, probably. Well, obviously not in every job. If you're a manager, then you're gonna be busy with more projects. But I think it's, I mean, well, if you have 10 projects, then maybe work on two, and if you have 20 projects, work on four. So at least reduce them, maybe. At least that would be a good. But I think the cultural component is quite important as well, because this is not really what people are used to doing, and maybe people get a bit yeah, mad or something, or they expect you to react right away. That's kind of can kind of be hard to deal with as well. But I think I don't know. I feel like people will be open to this kind of stuff. And again, having a working from home arrangement definitely helps with this as well.
Yeah.
I think.
More and more companies,
Yeah.
interestingly, are getting teams back into the office. So there's still even
Mm-hmm.
despite this research and backing from books like this, there's still
Mm-hmm.
this consensus at a high level that if people are at home, they're not going to do the work. But one thing it kind of mentioned in this book is the idea that those people who will maybe not do the work at home probably also aren't going to do the work at home. They're not going to, if they're taking time off or
Yeah.
not working at home,
Mm-hmm.
probably them coming into the office isn't, it's not the environment that's the cause, it's the how the person works, which makes the difference.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I guess it also depends on the person. I also know people that kind of like being around other people when working.
Mm.
But for me, it's not really the case. I just like being focused alone. If I hear small noises or things going on around me, then I'm kind of not too happy about it. Um, yeah. So and also I think with for example, I have autism. So for me personally, it also really helps to have this situation of working extra focused. I feel like I have like a higher output per hour when I'm really focused, and then I need more time to relax also. So
Mm.
that's why I kind of working from home for me personally is nice, where I can just really focus on one thing as well. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, and so the second general theme that the author gives is to work in a natural pace. Um, so you should well, one of the things he says is that you should schedule more time than you expect to need because, well, humans tend to be really bad at estimating how much time like an abstract project actually takes. Like we can kind of estimate how much making an axe takes or how much cutting a tree, how much time that takes. But yeah, we just don't really, we tend to be very optimistic because at the moment of creating a like an expectation or a time plan, it's just a nice feeling to think, oh yeah, it's gonna be fast, you know.
Yeah.
But then we kind of get attached to this idea, and then it's well, 9 out of 10 times it takes longer. So it's probably smart to be aware of this. Um,
Yeah, I have
yeah.
that a lot. Definitely,
Mm,
yeah, more in the past where deadlines mattered a bit more because there were so many different projects that it mattered a lot. But
mm,
yeah, it's very hard to predict stuff and going for going for more, I don't know, generous estimation
mm,
tends to work well.
yeah.
And it's also interesting on this, the kind of the pressure that we put on ourselves, because I guess this system has evolved out of when we had farm workers that yes, or people working in factories, it kind of makes sense for them to work this time. They have a couple of days off. That that helps the economy because people have time to spend their
Mm,
money, which is probably still true, but just that we're almost as if you're the worker in a business, our expectation is that we go into that and think we should be working all day. And
mm,
as you kind of say, that's not probably the most natural way to operate. So it I guess it's striking the balance of going to work and feeling like you're being productive, but not
mm,
having that expectation that you need to, I don't know, need to have all your projects under control at the same time. But
mm,
I think for me it goes back to kind of boundaries because when I first started that last well, when I was working in that situation, I had to basically just say to my manager, I can do this, I can't do that. You need
mm,
like you, you almost need to deal with that because
mm,
I guess it can't be expected for you as the worker to handle everything. So it's going to be, I guess, implementing this is comes back to effective communication and boundary
yeah.
setting because yeah, it's not. is not what the majority of people do. And he kind of talked, didn't he, that most people just take on as much work as they can,
Yeah.
and until they're at burnout, and then
Hmm.
or where they've got too much on and they can't fit it all in. That's where they maybe
Hmm.
go to their boss or say we need to push back this deadline, for example. But I guess it's being more proactive that's going to have a big impact on being able to implement this system, which probably leads to deeper and more focused work, whilst also keeping your job and keeping your employers happy.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. You kind of have to strike a balance, and sometimes maybe you can't really negotiate with your manager, and maybe uh, then maybe you might be right from the standpoint of productivity by doing things differently, but by the standpoint of keeping your job, you may not make the optimal decision.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
also important to keep your job, of course.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy, right? We can set boundaries at a certain point, but most people only do it when they're like really stressed. So they kind of get to a point where we allow, or the majority of people allow, to be pressured as much until they come to a point that they are already above their limits, but then they're above their limit, so they cannot take in any more work.
Mm,
And only then we set the boundaries. But for the standpoint of productivity, it would be better if we set it earlier, right?
yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
guess
and
that's partly human nature that
mhm,
I've seen that in my life where it's like only when things are actually properly bad does it give us enough motivation to change
yeah,
something.
hmm,
And I guess it just
yeah,
goes back to like comfort in you have comfort in keeping it to yourself, and maybe there's some pride as well in thinking I'm taking on all this work and I can handle,
yeah,
like definitely in the
hmm,
UK there's status related to like hustle culture and doing loads of work, and definitely for men I see that
hmm,
quite a lot online, that's sort of promoted.
hmm. Yeah, that's true. We kind of use being busy as a way of feeling important in a way,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see that as well. Yeah, and so another aspect is the thing of seasonal work. Um, so basically, the author is talking about how it's good to have like um, times of a high season where you're more productive, and like taking more of a season where in lower productivity. And now the way it's now, it's like, yeah, you have in the West then 2 to 6 weeks of holidays or something for most people.
Mm,
Um, and outside of that, it's, well, we're kind of expecting to always be productive, and that's quite unnatural for us as humans, I think. And now that I have more freedom, and I'm really taking every year maybe 2 or 3 months at least off from working.
mm.
But I feel very productive. So I also, when I look at the results, I feel quite productive. I don't know how it is for you, but for me, it really feels like, yeah, sometimes I'm really in a just very focused season, and I wake up early in the morning, and then I really get a lot of things done. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess one thing that may be different for you is when you have the time off, it's sort of fully off. Whereas I
yeah,
think
yeah,
the way I'm doing it is more I'm working, but the workload isn't super high. But yeah,
mm,
I don't know. And yeah,
yeah,
the nature of my business isn't maybe one where you can just walk away, but it would be cool to sort of try and like have a period where you're just yeah, and just experiencing life, maybe going hiking or spending a long time doing that, or surfing, for example. That'd be
mm,
cool for me to try as well.
yeah, yeah. But for your workload is somewhat stable, right? Over the time. So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not as intense as it used to be when I was working for someone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then you also, like, let's say if you're feeling extra productive for 1 month, do you do Do you use it for other projects, and when you feel less productive, you do like less work? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, yeah, it's difficult to answer that one, to be honest. I think,
Mm,
yeah, I take on other projects as well, but it's not like there's in say like a given month, I feel like, oh, this is the time. It's more if things make me curious, I might take that on. But then, yeah,
mm,
it's always the challenge of whether you can continue it when when I've got commitments already. So, yeah, I guess that's where
mm,
you need to be more selective, particularly as you
mm,
get more opportunities.
mm. Yeah, yeah. What I really like now is that I plan this time, the coming months to travel, but I'm starting to come to the conclusion that just traveling is not really I don't know, challenging enough for me or something. I guess I need like something to keep me busy.
Mm.
Which means I got quite a period without work where I can do whatever I want basically. And I think so I can totally go with my own rhythm and my own flow of how productive I want to be, how much intellectual work I want to do. So I think that will be a nice experiment.
Mm.
And yeah, I definitely feel like that's a better way than always expecting of myself that I will be working 8 hours per day, 5 days a week or something. Um,
Yeah, it gives
yeah,
you
and
room to sort of explore, doesn't it? Which is nice.
yeah. Which also goes back to the third main theme of the book, which is to obsess over quality. Um, but you
Mm.
kind of need also the space for yourself to be able to do that. Because he gives like an example of a singer songwriter who turns off a $1 million sign off deal. So because then she has like less financial incentives to perform to get a lot of listeners or whatever, so she can really make the music in the way she wants,
Mm.
um, and then have like more quality in that sense. And that really resonated with me. That I think it's worth a lot to keep a lot of like to keep some financial independence and to be able to do the work you want to do, and not the work that's like expected or that you have these financial incentives going on where you have to kind of do the work you don't really optimally would want to do.
Mm.
uh, so yeah, that definitely made me think about that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, that's interesting. Is it? Yeah, it's
mm,
definitely. I'd say from my experience, it feels a lot more rewarding when you do that work that is more in depth. Um, I guess it's also thinking about where you want to apply the quality. Because say, for example, you have maybe a job that is fine, like you quite like it. Maybe you're actually quite happy rushing through a few tasks to get them done, and then maybe your quality time is outside of work, you play in a band or
mm,
something like that.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's also true. You can also put it in that way, especially when you're especially at the beginning of your career. In some cases, you kind of have to you cannot have the ideal working situation yet, I guess.
Mm.
So you kind of sometimes have to become a bit creative as well. Maybe indeed when you're like you want to be an artist, you can just think, okay, I just want to get my work done, and then I can focus on what I really want to do.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So in the last chapter, he gives a few smaller examples of ways to obsess over quality. Um, like so, investing in good equipment, like a good working desk, a good computer, or whatever, like the stuff that you really want for your work. Because then it also it's about how you see yourself. If you see if you think, okay, I find my work so important that I'm gonna really invest in good equipment, and it's kind of gonna change how you think about it.
Mm.
And one example he gave also resonated with me, and also relates to like where I'm uh, in my life right now, which is to bet on yourself. So, for example, Bill Gates, he quit college to start his own business. So it kind of puts some social pressure also. Like you're not just gonna do that for no reason. And you can actually also kind of use these social expectations. So you can say to your environment, okay, I'm gonna do this and this, and then you're gonna create the circumstances for you to really perform, maybe. So that was a
Yeah,
nice example. So maybe for me, yeah, I could also like invest more in my professional development in a company, or I can also start my own business, but maybe then starting my own business now, that even though it's not as certain, it's gonna create yeah more incentive for me to perform well.
yeah.
Yeah.
I hadn't just on that one quickly. I had that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I was going traveling, so I just told everyone. So
Mm.
I was like, I'm going to out to Asia. Just everyone, I told everyone. So it's like I got to go, and I still put it off. But I was forced to go.
Oh yeah,
Good.
yeah, yeah. That's true. That's a nice example.
When all
Um,
your friends start asking, when are you going to do that? It then
mhm.
it comes back to your integrity. So if it's something you really want to do, then it's good to say it because people don't
Yeah,
trust you don't then follow through.
yeah, yeah. That's true. Um, yeah, and he also recommended making a 5-year plan, uh, so
Yeah.
that you can also, yeah. So I think that's important also because then you identify what's really important for me, for you, and because otherwise, like you can be very efficient, but if it's not related to your purpose, then it doesn't really matter as much.
Mm.
So I think that's also a good one. So yeah, in the last chapter, he gives a few small uh, things, like smaller tips, but still, which are still useful. So yeah, I think that about wraps it up for my part at least. And yeah, hopefully we can use these tools and guidelines to deal with the current working environment and the pressure that's put on knowledge workers. Yeah, and I think the examples he gives of yeah breakthroughs in the sciences, for example, or of great book writers, which really came over a long period of time, can be very insightful. And we can use these examples for ourselves and kind of take some distance from the busyness of everyday life. So
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think for me, probably take away just focusing on fewer areas because if you're trying to grow a business, it's very easy to try everything at once and then you're managing client work and trying to do
mm,
outreach. So yeah, I think just slowing down in terms of I will do these few things each day and just sort of repeat that rather than thinking I'll try and do everything every day.
mm,
And yeah,
yeah,
that'd be very helpful. Um, but yeah, I think let's wrap up there. And thank you
yeah,
everyone for listening. Hope you found that useful and take a look at the book. Let us know your thoughts on it.
yeah. For slow productivity, everyone.
Probably.
Have a good month, and see you at the next discussion.
Yeah, see you guys. Thank you.